Welcome to Q&A, guys. This is our very first Q&A ever. Despite being on YouTube, I don't really actually know how to use YouTube. I don't know how to do questions on here. So I went on to Instagram on stories and did one of those box things and asked you guys to submit some Q&A. I ended up going into labor like 2 days later, so I never got to them. But now here we are. It's been 2 weeks and baby's here. She's 10 days old and I am ready to finally answer these questions for you. I'm gonna try not to over explain stuff because I really want to get to as many of you guys as I possibly can. I'm a little excited. Why are you so fabulous? Very first one I read. We're off to a good start. I don't know. What made you want to start your channel? Ooh, this is a good question. Kind of a big answer. There are a lot of reasons. One of the biggest reasons I wanted to start my channel is that the doctors weren't really helpful when I was going through the migraine diagnosis process. I was getting all these really scary symptoms and the doctor hadn't explained that they could all be migraine. So when I went in to tell her, hey, you know, I'm having like paralysis or whatever, I'm having tremors, I feel like I'm having these little partial seizures, what's going on? She would always just talk about migraine attacks. Before my migraines were chronic, I actually had episodic migraines that were very classic. So, oh no. In my head, migraines were a painful headache. So that was a lot of it, just awareness. Are you gonna be fussy the whole video? Please don't. It felt like my employer didn't really understand, my friends didn't really understand, and as much as I explained things, it never does justice to say it. You sort of have to show people. So I thought maybe I can help people who are going through the same thing. Also because I had no idea that migraine service dogs exist. Also because a lot of the service dog handlers that I saw online were frankly just not good influences. They're kind of angry and mean, and I thought maybe there was a better, more kind way to educate people about service dogs. And also because I had to leave my job. So I was hoping that during the course of the pregnancy I could build up a YouTube channel and get it monetized and be able to contribute financially to my family again, even though I'm disabled. So sort of dual purpose in that way. Oh. Are you upset? Do I have to give you to Dad? She likes Dad better. I said I wasn't gonna over-explain and then I totally over-explained that, but it was like, it's a lot. It's a lot of reasons why I started my channel, and I'm so glad that I did because you guys have been telling me that you feel less alone. I feel way less alone hearing from you guys. Do you feel alone because I'm ignoring you? Anyway, this community is way more than I could have ever imagined, so I'm super, super thankful that I did start it, and I just really love making videos for you. I'm gonna take care of this and pause for a minute, and I'll be right back. Oh, you run the schedule around here, don't you? All right, she did settle down, but I'm just gonna leave her with Dad. There's no point in making this harder than it has to be. Is your husband going to take paternity leave when baby girl gets here? My husband is sort of a weird case. He has 2 different job classes that he does. One is teaching at universities, he teaches economics, and the other is small business owning. So he had a martial arts studio, he has a science camp that he founded, he did like an after school program for kids. Small business owners, I mean, you own the business, you run it, so you have to be there like all the time. But school happens to be out of session from now until like a month from now, so he's off of that. And we moved last year and then coronavirus hit, so he hasn't opened any new businesses in our new area. So yes, by chance he's on paternity leave, but in a normal situation he would not have been, most likely. Next question. Why couldn't your husband speak for a while? He had a thing called glossopharyngeal neuralgia, another super rare disorder. It took a very long time to get diagnosed. Once it was a little bit mistreated, but then eventually, yeah. We'll get into that story later. We get a lot of questions about that. He does want to share it with you guys, so that will come out in another video. Look that up though. Got a couple of people asking how I met my husband. So I mentioned he owned that martial arts studio, right? When I was in college, I needed some way to get off campus because everything is on campus when you're in college and when you live there and all that. And my husband owned a martial arts studio. So I went and joined the martial arts studio, and one thing led to another, and then I married my teacher. If you were to get a second dog, would you have him trained as a second service animal as well? If I still had Buddy, no. I mean, I only need one service dog. I'm hoping that after Buddy I won't need a service dog. It just depends how my health is. Service animals are a lot of work. They're a lot of training, a lot of upkeep. They're a super big help, but they're also a big inconvenience for outings and travel and stuff. So there's a chance, if my health is good enough in the future, that I'll stop having a service dog, but time will tell. I mean, Buddy is still very young, so we have a very long time, and my conditions are probably going to keep changing. So we'll see. How would you say your disability affects your marriage? Stronger or weaker? Definitely stronger, but only because we have really tight communication. What's the most positive experience you've had since having Buddy as a service dog? Definitely that Utah road trip that I talk about all the time. I never would have been able to do that without Buddy. Hands down. There are so many hikes, so many experiences that I would have just not gone on because I would have been nervous about a migraine coming if I didn't have Buddy. But since I did have him, I got to participate in like almost everything. So he really changed my life. Yeah. When did you get your first migraine? My first migraine was in high school. I don't know exactly when it was, but I was in high school. It was a very classic painful migraine. I treated it with Excedrin, took a nap, woke up, and I was pretty okay. How old were you when you'd felt the first symptoms? I was in middle school, but I had no idea that these were symptoms until literally college or past college. It wasn't until I was looking back in retrospect that I was able to recognize that these symptoms were happening. So, one particular memory comes to mind. When I was a kid, I did gymnastics competitively, so I was at practice like all the time. And there was this day that I was on beam and I had a big blind spot happen, or one of my eyes went blind or something like that. So I went over to my coach and I was like, I know this sounds really crazy, but I can't see out of my right eye. My coach obviously was a little bit skeptical about that, but she did let me stop doing the beam rotation. They called my parents, let my parents know, and then of course by the time we could do any looking into it, the aura was gone. And I don't think I ended up getting another aura for a very long time. I don't really remember. When I was a kid, I would also kind of randomly get these vomiting spells, and it wasn't until I was an adult and getting regular migraines that I learned that a lot of kids get abdominal migraines, so I might have been having abdominal migraines when I was a kid. And last but not least, another thing at gymnastics that I just remembered, I would have a lot of trouble with any twisting moves. So anything forward and back, totally fine. I totally knew where I was in space, all good. But the second I added any kind of twist, I would get very, very lost. And I didn't realize that my vestibular system was a little bit wonky. I didn't learn about my vestibular system being wonky until I was like 26, maybe even a little bit older, when I finally went into vestibular therapy for the migraines, and they told me that I've been compensating with my eyes, and that makes sense because obviously you can't use your eyes when you're doing flips and twists at the same time. Interesting stuff. Well, interesting to me. Hopefully you find that interesting too. Next question. I'm not doing good with this not over-explaining thing. How do you cope with the migraine life? I'd love to get into this a lot in 2021. I did some self-therapy at home to learn how to accept that this is my fate. And I know that sounds really sad to say, and it doesn't mean that I've lost hope about having a cure, or I don't want to call it a cure either. Words. I have to be so careful with words because it's all recorded. I have hope that I will have less migraines in the future, and I'm still working towards that all the time. However, life has to go on now, and I want to be happy even if I have migraines. So I have accepted them as a part of me, not a part of me that I like, but we all have parts of us that we don't like. You know, this is just one of my quirks. Are you planning on having more kids? I'd love to. I've always wanted 2 or 3. We'll see where life takes us. When Buddy is off, like off duty, does he still provide checks and alerts? Yes, he does. Does Buddy shed a lot? Yes, he does. How often do you faint? Depends. Before I was pregnant, not too often. I would get near syncope more than syncope. First trimester, I was fainting like every day. Towards the 3rd trimester, since your blood pressure raises naturally, I wasn't really fainting very often. I was maybe fainting once or twice a week in the 3rd trimester. And I have not fainted yet postpartum, or 10 days postpartum. How did you find out Buddy was naturally alerting? I figured it out because he is so precise with the way that he alerts. It's literally so hard to explain unless you've experienced it, but he gets this serious look on his face, like he's about to deliver some news. He's about to drop a bomb. And he got so close to me, so slowly, and then stuck his tongue out a little bit early, and then just booped it on my nose super slowly. It was just the weirdest, most bizarre behavior ever. And it took me a long time to realize that it was a migraine alert because I forget everything. And so I don't know how long this was actually happening before I was conscious of it, but I started kind of making better mental notes about it once I started to suspect that maybe he was onto something. How old is Buddy? When do you think you'll retire him and train another service dog? Buddy is 3 years old. He just turned 3 in November. I hope that you watched his birthday video. If you haven't, I'll put it here. When do you think you'll retire him and train another service dog? I have no idea. That's not even on my radar, and I'm not really sure if I'll have another service dog. We'll see how my health is at that point. At what point after getting Buddy did you realize that you wanted to train to be a service animal? When we first got Buddy, we knew that we had to be strict on his training because of my vestibular issues and my cognitive problems. We knew he had to be a really particularly well-behaved dog so that I wouldn't have to worry about giving him commands and being on top of him when I was having these migraines, and especially when I was home alone. And I did consider training him to be a migraine alert dog even when he was a puppy, but I heard that it could take a really long time. It could be like a year. Some dogs don't ever pick it up. Some dogs don't have the right temperament. So I didn't want to put all this work into a dog and have it not work out. So that was that. But then he started alerting, and then he was really close to being able to pass the public access test, and then I was getting worse and worse, and we realized that his alerts were making a huge difference for me. So then I spent a while doing purely training, quit my job and just train the dog like non-stop. And of course that training is ongoing too, but I'm rambling now. Let's move on. What treatment works best for your migraines? Avoiding triggers. Obviously it's easier to prevent than to abort, but I think the most effective thing that I've been on was probably Botox. Botox really helped me a lot. Propranolol is also one of my best friends, but I think that's because of my tachycardia, so I don't know if that's really fair. What is your favorite food and drink? I'm obsessed with chocolate milk, and I really like beer, but I can't have most beers because of the migraine trigger. And food, I love steak, and I love anything with tomato. Marinara, tomato sauce. I'll eat tomatoes like they're grapes. I'll eat big tomatoes like they're apples. When is the baby coming? A lot of these questions are, when is the baby coming? When is the baby due? The baby was due December 28th, 2020, but she was born December 20th. Birth plan. My plan was a home birth. My daughter was sunny side up, so the home birth didn't really go according to plan. I'm gonna share that story next week. I'm not gonna get into that now. Does it bother you if people talk about your belly or anything pregnancy related? Not at all. Everybody's excited about my belly. Everybody's excited about the baby. I'm all for it. I don't find it offensive if people want to grab my stomach. I actually really enjoyed it when people wanted to feel the baby kick. I know some people don't like it though. It is kind of weird to go grab someone's stomach, but honestly, when I was like this big, it didn't really feel like it was my stomach anymore. It felt like that was baby. I'm back here, and the baby was in front. It just didn't feel like mine anymore. There is a floof right where my nipple goes. I hope that wasn't visible the whole video. When were you diagnosed with POTS? November of 2019. Concerns about newborn phase with chronic fainting? None. I have my alert dog. He doesn't miss alerts. I can also feel the faints coming, so yeah, just not worried about it at all. And actually, let me clarify one more thing before that comes off as dismissive. During the day leading up to a big faint, I feel weird almost the whole day. Something feels off. I'm a little bit anxious. I feel a little bit clammy. So if I'm ever in that kind of a situation, I'm not gonna be holding the baby. And that's why I'm not very worried. If you're not in this situation, I know it's kind of hard to imagine it, but you sort of have an idea when you're feeling off. When's the baby due? Blah, blah, blah. Why the name Buddy? Buddy is because my husband always called dogs Buddy, so then we wanted to call him Buddy. And also because when we found out that Buddy's litter was going to be conceived, I was having seizures, so he was going to be my seizure buddy, someone for me to cuddle during my seizures. Will you be vlogging labor and delivery for baby girl? We did take a lot of pictures and videos during the delivery, during the birth and all that, but I do not plan on sharing those. I want to keep them private. Although I absolutely love birth videos. I think that they're fantastic and magical. I'm just a little bit more private of a person. How does extreme weather affect you with regard to your diagnosis and diff abilities? Woo! I'm definitely very sensitive to barometric pressure shifts, so I use the WeatherX earplugs when there's going to be a storm coming in and out, and those really help a lot. With regard to my diagnosis and disabilities, I'm disabled, not diff-abled. That's a whole topic. Molly Burke actually made a video about this, and if I'm allowed to link it, I'm going to put it here. I'm disabled. I'm not differently abled. There are certain things that I can't do, and that makes me disabled. So I prefer to be called disabled. It is what it is. Coffee or tea? I absolutely love coffee. If I had to give one up, I would give up tea. All right, let's do like one more. This is a perfect one to end on because it's such a big misconception. So let's just nip this one in the bud while we're here. Did you train Buddy on your own? How did you do to get him certified as a service dog? I'm in the United States. There is no service dog registry. You do not register your service dog. If you do that, you are just giving someone money for nothing. They are scams. No registry. Did I train Buddy on my own? Yes, I did. Obviously, my husband helped. I would not be able to have the dog without my husband helping. Okay. I'm not gonna look. I keep saying last one and I keep getting another one and another one and another one because this is actually very fun. I like Q&As. I told you guys already in my little video last week, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you my birth story next week's video. I feel like I'm doing pretty well, so as long as nothing crazy happens, you guys will finally get that full story next week. If you want to be able to submit a question for the next Q&A, or if you want to be involved in voting for what the next videos are, make sure that you're following us on Instagram and watching our stories, because that's where I do all of the interactive ask you guys questions stuff. If you did submit a question, I really hope that I got to you. One of the hard parts about the rapid growth that I saw this month is that I can't get to all of your DMs anymore, and I hate that. That's been one of the hardest things about growing. I really wish I could give all of you the time, and I just can't. So I think these Q&As are a really good way for me to answer as many DMs as I can. And yeah, is there anything else? I guess not. Make sure you subscribe, hit like, and I'll see you guys next time. Happy New Year.